The smell of smoke and iron hung thick in the royal kitchen. It was dawn in Frostmoor Keep, but the torches still burned, as if the night refused to let go. Shadows trembled against the stone walls, and the fire in the hearth crackled with restless fury. That was when King Darius Thornwell walked in, Alpha of the Northern Realms, conqueror of 7 clans, a man feared, even by his own council. He expected silence. He expected the kitchen servants to scatter at his approach. He did not expect the sight that greeted him, a girl curled on the floor beside the hearth, trembling so violently that the ladle she'd dropped still rolled in a slow circle. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, 3 deep claw marks slashed across her skin, still bleeding, staining the stone beneath her. Her hair, long, dark, braided with simple string, hid her face as she sobbed into her hands. His stepsister, Elara. Darius froze, mid-stride. Something cold and ancient tightened around his heart. Elara, he breathed, but the word barely left his throat. She lifted her head slowly, tears streaking her cheeks, lips trembling, terror shining in eyes that should never have known fear. And behind her, towering in the firelight, stood a man, one of his own warriors, armor on, knuckles bloodied, expression blank, as if hurting her was nothing. Darius's wolf slammed against his ribcage. "What?" the Alpha King said, voice deadly quiet. "Did you do to her?" The warrior swallowed, his face drained of color. "Your Majesty, I was simply—" Silence. The word cut through the air like a blade. Darius moved. Not with the calculated precision of a king, but with the raw fury of an alpha protecting pack. 3 strides, that's all it took. His hand shot out, grabbed the warrior by the throat, lifted him clean off the ground. The man choked, clawed at Darius's grip, but the Alpha King's strength was absolute. "You dare!" Darius snarled, his voice dropping into a guttural growl. "Touch her!" Behind him, Elara gasped. "No, Darius, please, don't." Her voice was broken, desperate, and that shattered something inside him. She wasn't begging for justice, she was begging him to stop, protecting her abuser. Darius threw the warrior across the kitchen. The man crashed into a rack of iron pots. Metal clanged, echoed. The warrior groaned, but didn't rise. Smart. Darius turned back to Elara, knelt slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. "Elara," he said softly. "Let me see." "I'm fine," she whispered, but her voice shook. Her hands trembled as she tried to pull the torn fabric back over her shoulder. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing. I dropped the pot. It startled him. It's my fault." "Stop." His voice was gentle now, but firm. He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Carefully, so carefully, he peeled back the edge of her torn dress, and his breath stopped. The fresh wounds were bad enough. 3 parallel claw marks, deep, still bleeding, but beneath them, old scars, dozens of them, long, jagged, layered over each other like a road map of suffering. Not claw marks. These were different. Silver. His blood turned to ice. "Elara," he whispered. "How long?" She looked away. Tears spilling faster now. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Darius, please, if you make this a problem, they'll only—" "They?" His voice sharpened. "Who is they?" She shook her head, pressed her lips together, refusing to speak. Darius felt his wolf rising, felt the rage building like a storm in his chest. But he forced it down. For her. "I'm taking you to the healer," he said quietly. "No, I can't. The morning meal needs— Elara." He cupped her face gently, made her look at him. "You are not a servant. You are my sister. And you are bleeding." Her breath hitched, as if those words, those simple words, were the most shocking thing she'd heard all morning. He stood, slid one arm beneath her knees, the other behind her back. "Darius, no. I can walk. Please don't cause trouble." But he was already lifting her by carefully, gently. She weighed almost nothing. How had he never noticed? Behind them, the warrior groaned, tried to sit up. Darius turned his head, let his eyes flash gold. "If you move from that spot before I return," he said, voice cold as winter frost, "I will ensure you never walk again." The warrior froze. "Before we continue, please support us and hit the subscribe button and like. Motivates us. Create more powerful stories. Now, let's dive in." Darius carried Elara toward the door. Servants had gathered in the shadows, watching, whispering, eyes wide with shock. And something else. Fear. Not of him. Of being caught. They knew. They all knew. His jaw clenched. His wolf snarled beneath his skin. How long had this been happening? How long had his own people, in his own castle, been hurting her? Elara buried her face against his chest, still trembling, still apologizing. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Darius looked down at her, at this girl who'd lived in his home for years, who'd been invisible, voiceless, broken. And he felt something crack open inside his chest. Not anger, grief, because he should have seen this. He should have protected her, but he'd been too busy playing king to notice the girl bleeding in his own kitchen. As dawn light broke through the narrow windows, Darius carried his stepsister through the silent halls of Frostmoor Keep. And for the first time in his reign, the kingdom's most feared Alpha King felt afraid, not of enemies, not of war, but of what else he had failed to see. The healer's chamber smelled of sage and lavender, a sharp contrast to the iron and smoke they'd left behind. Darius kicked the door open, didn't bother knocking, didn't care that dawn had barely broken, or that Maeve, the healer, was still in her nightclothes. "Your Majesty," she began. "Now," he said. The word left no room for debate. Maeve's eyes went to Elara in his arms, widened, then hardened with something that looked almost like recognition. She'd seen this before. The realization hit Darius like a punch to the gut. "Put her on the table," Maeve said quietly, already moving, already reaching for her supplies. Darius laid Elara down as gently as he could, but she still winced, still curled inward, trying to make herself smaller. "I'm sorry," Elara whispered again. "I'm so sorry for the trouble." "Stop apologizing," Darius said. His voice came out rougher than he meant. Maeve began cleaning the wounds. Her hands, steady, practiced, too practiced. How bad? Darius asked. The fresh wounds will heal, Maeve said carefully. With rest and... I'm not asking about the fresh wounds. Silence. Maeve's hands paused, just for a heartbeat. Then she continued working. Elara turned her face away, stared at the wall, as if she could disappear into the stone itself. Darius stepped closer, lowered his voice. Maeve, tell me. The healer sighed, set down her cloth, met his eyes. Your Majesty, I've been tending her wounds for 3 years. 3 years. The words echoed in his head, hollowed him out. 3 years. He'd been king for 5. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I tried, Maeve said softly. Once. Early on. I was told. It wasn't my place. By who? Maeve glanced at Elara, then back at him, said nothing, but her silence said everything. Darius's hands curled into fists, his wolf pressed against his skin, demanding release, demanding blood. But he forced himself to breathe, to think, to remember. Elara came to Frostmoor when she was 9 years old. He remembered that day, barely. He'd been 17, preparing to leave for the northern borders, his father's voice still ringing in his ears. A king must earn his crown in blood, boy, not birthright. His father's new wife, Queen Annalise, had arrived with a small girl clinging to her skirts, dark-haired, wide-eyed, terrified. This is Elara, Annalise had said, her voice soft, kind. My daughter. Darius had knelt, tried to smile. Hello, little one. Elara had hidden her face, said nothing. He'd left the next morning, didn't return for 2 years. When he came back, Annalise was dead. Fever, they said, swift and merciless. And Elara had changed, quieter, thinner, always hovering in doorways, always apologizing, always invisible. He'd tried to speak with her once, asked if she was well, if she needed anything. She'd stared at the floor, shaken her head, whispered, I'm fine, Your Majesty, then disappeared like smoke. He'd told himself she was just grieving, shy, adjusting to palace life. He'd told himself she'd come to him if something was wrong, but she never did, and he never asked, because he was busy, wars to fight, alliances to forge, a kingdom to secure. Always. Somewhere else. She was 12 when it started, Maeve said quietly, breaking through his thoughts. After Queen Annalise passed, that's when the bruises appeared, then the cuts, then worse. Darius couldn't breathe. 12. A child. Why didn't she tell me? His voice cracked. Because she thought you knew, Maeve said simply. The words hit like a blade between his ribs. She thought... He couldn't finish. She thought you allowed it, Maeve continued. Or didn't care enough to stop it. Darius turned to Elara. She was still staring at the wall, tears streaming silently down her face. Elara, he said, moved to her side, knelt so she couldn't avoid him. Look at me. She shook her head. Please. Slowly. So slowly. She turned. Her eyes were red, swollen, filled with a pain so deep it made him ache. Did you really think? he asked softly. That I knew. She bit her lip. Fresh tears spilled over. You're the king, she whispered. Everyone answers to you. If it was happening, and you never stopped it, I thought... She couldn't finish, but she didn't need to. Darius felt like he'd been gutted. Elara, I didn't know. I swear on my life. I didn't know. Then why didn't anyone tell you? Her voice broke. Why did no one help me? The question hung in the air, and Darius had no answer. Because she was right. The servants knew. Maeve knew. The guards knew. Even the kitchen staff who'd scattered this morning. They knew. Everyone knew. Except him. Because no one thought a kitchen servant, an unwanted stepsister, was worth bothering the king about. Or worse. They were afraid. Who did this? He asked, his voice dark, dangerous. Elara shook her head frantically. Please, don't ask me that. Elara, if I tell you, it'll get worse. It always gets worse when nothing will get worse, he said firmly. I promise you. You can't promise that. Her voice rose, desperate. You're always gone. You leave and they're still here and I can't. She dissolved into sobs, and Darius felt his heart shatter. Because she was right. He was always gone, always fighting someone else's battles, while she fought hers alone. Maeve placed a gentle hand on Elara's shoulder. Rest now, child. You're safe. But Elara shook her head. I'm not. I'm never safe. The words were so quiet, so broken, but they echoed through Darius like thunder. He stood, turned to Maeve. Stay with her. Don't let anyone in except me. Where are you going? Maeve asked. To get answers. He strode toward the door, but before he left, he looked back at Elara. Small, wounded, terrified. The girl no one protected, his sister, and he made a vow. Silent, absolute, no more. No more looking away. No more excuses. No more letting her suffer alone. Whatever it took. Whoever was responsible. He would burn this castle to ash before he let anyone hurt her again. Darius didn't leave. He meant to. Meant to storm through the castle. Drag answers from every servant, every guard, every soul who'd watched his sister suffer in silence. But something stopped him. Maeve's hands. They'd gone still, hovering over Elara's shoulder. Her expression, shifting from concern to something darker. Fear. What is it? Darius asked. Maeve didn't answer, just stared at the wounds she was cleaning. Maeve. The healer's jaw tightened. Your Majesty. I need to examine her back. Elara's eyes went wide. No. Elara, I said no. Her voice cracked with panic. She tried to sit up, to pull away, but Maeve held her gently. Child, the healer said softly. He needs to see. No, please, it's fine. They're old. It doesn't matter. But Darius was already moving closer, his wolf screaming beneath his skin. Something was wrong, something worse than he'd already seen. Elara, he said quietly, let me see. Darius, please. Tears streamed down her face. Don't look at me like I'm broken. You're not broken, he said firmly. You're hurt. There's a difference. She stared at him, searching his face for something. Truth, maybe. Safety. Finally, she nodded. just barely. Maeve helped her turn, carefully, slowly. And then she peeled back the torn fabric of Alara's dress. Darius's breath stopped. The fresh claw marks he'd seen earlier were nothing. Beneath them, her entire back was a canvas of scars, dozens of them. No, hundreds. Long, thin, overlapping, some pale with age, others still pink and raised. But it wasn't just the number, it was the pattern. Parallel lines, precise, deliberate, not claw marks, not accidents, whip marks. And something about them made his wolf recoil. "Maeve," he said, his voice hollow, "what am I looking at?" The healer's hands trembled as she traced one of the scars. "Silver," the word hit like thunder. "What?" "These aren't ordinary whip scars," Maeve said quietly. "They're silver lashes. See the discoloration, the way they healed. Wrong? Silver prevents proper healing, leaves permanent marks." Darius felt the room tilt. Silver whips, outlawed for over a century. Used only for one purpose, breaking powerful wolves, torturing them, stripping them of their strength until they couldn't shift, couldn't fight back, couldn't even stand. Tools of the Inquisition, the blood wars, weapons no honorable pack would ever touch. That's impossible," Darius said, but his voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking. "Silver whips don't exist anymore. They were destroyed, banned under my grandfather's reign." "Apparently," Maeve said darkly, "someone kept one." Darius stared at Alara's back, at the evidence carved into her skin. Years of torture, systematic, calculated, cruel. This wasn't punishment for dropping a pot. This wasn't a warrior losing his temper. This was intentional. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Based on the scarring." Maeve examined closer. "Years, since she was a child." Darius felt his knees weaken. He gripped the edge of the table, forced himself to stay upright. "Who would do this?" he asked. "Who in this castle would even have access to—" He stopped, because the answer was obvious. Silver whips weren't something a common guard could acquire, or hide, or use repeatedly without anyone noticing. This required authority, protection, power. Someone high-ranking, Maeve said quietly, reading his thoughts. Someone who could command silence, who could ensure no one spoke out. Darius's mind raced. His father's council, the Queen Regent, his own advisors, someone close to the throne, someone he trusted. His hands curled into fists, his claws extending, piercing his palms, drawing blood. But he barely felt it. "Alara," he said, his voice rough, dangerous. "Look at me." She turned her head slowly, eyes red, face streaked with tears. "Who did this to you?" She shook her head, fresh panic flooding her expression. "Alara, I can't. You can. You're safe now. I swear to you, no one will hurt you again." "You don't understand." Her voice broke. "They'll know I told. They'll what?" His voice rose. "They'll hurt you. They've already done that, for years. What could they possibly do that's worse than what they've already— They'll kill me." The words exploded from her, raw, terrified, absolute. Silence crashed through the room. Darius stared at her, at the fear in her eyes. Real fear, not exaggeration, not panic. She believed it. "Elara," he said softly. "Who told you they'd kill you?" She pressed her hands to her face, sobbed harder. "Who made you believe your life was worthless?" "Everyone," she whispered. "Everyone said it. That I was unwanted, a burden. That if I caused problems, if I spoke out, they'd make sure I disappeared. That no one would even notice." Darius felt something inside him shatter. Complete. Irreparable. His sister, 12 years old when this started, told that her life, her existence, was disposable. And she believed it, because no one ever told her different. "Look at me," he said. Moved closer. Knelt beside the table so they were eye level. She lowered her hands, met his gaze. "You are not disposable," he said, each word deliberate, heavy. "You are not unwanted. You are my sister, my blood, and your life, Elara. Your life is worth more than this entire kingdom." Her breath hitched. "But I need you to trust me," he continued. "I need you to tell me who did this, because I swear on my crown, on my wolf, on everything I am, I will not let them touch you again." She stared at him, searching, hoping, but the fear was still there. "I can't," she whispered. "If I tell you, everything will get worse. They'll find a way. They always find a way. Not this time. You don't know that. I do, because this time, I'm not leaving." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Please, Elara," he said, his voice cracking. "Please, let me protect you. Let me." "The Queen Regent." The words were so quiet, so broken, but they echoed through Darius like a death knell. "What?" "The Queen Regent," Elara repeated, louder now, shaking. "She ordered it, all of it, the whippings, the punishment, the everything." Darius went very, very still. His stepmother, the woman who'd guided him through his father's death, who'd helped him navigate the council, who'd smiled at him at every state dinner, who'd called him "my dear boy" and praised his leadership. She'd been torturing Elara for years. "Why?" he asked, his voice deadly calm. Elara looked away. "Because of what I am. What you... my bloodline," she whispered. "She said it was dangerous, that I needed to be controlled, broken, before I became a threat." Darius's wolf roared inside him. He stood, turned, paced. His mind screamed. His heart pounded. His claws extended fully. A threat. They called a 12-year-old girl. A threat. "Darius," Elara said weakly. "Please, don't do anything. She'll..." "Don't make them angry again," he finished, his voice cold, hollow. She nodded, fresh tears falling. He looked at her. at this girl who'd been tortured, broken, silenced, and he made a decision. "I'm going to make them very angry," he said quietly. "Darius, stay here. Maeve will keep you safe." He moved toward the door. "Where are you going?" Elara called after him, panic rising in her voice. He paused, looked back, and his eyes glowed gold. "To have a conversation," he said softly, "with the Queen Regent." Darius didn't confront the Queen Regent, not yet, because 2 hours after he left Elara in Maeve's care, a servant came running. "Your Majesty, the girl, she's burning up." He ran, didn't walk, didn't stride with royal composure. He ran, through corridors, past startled guards, up 3 flights of stairs, burst through the healer's chamber door like a man possessed, and found Elara, convulsing on the table. "What's happening?" he demanded. Maeve worked frantically, pressing cold cloths to Elara's forehead, pouring something bitter-smelling between her lips. "Wolfsbane," Maeve said, her voice tight, controlled. "It was in the wounds. I didn't catch it earlier. It's been sitting in her system for hours. Will she? I don't know." The words hit like a blade. Darius crossed to the table, took Elara's hand. It was burning. Her skin, flushed and slick with sweat. Her breathing, rapid, shallow. And her eyes. They moved beneath her closed lids. Rapid, frantic. Like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. "Elara," he said, squeezed her hand. "I'm here. You're safe. Just hold on." She didn't respond, just trembled, gasped, whimpered words he couldn't understand. "Forgive me. I'm sorry. Please, don't." Darius felt his heart crack, even unconscious, even burning with fever. She was still apologizing. "Maeve," he said, his voice rough. "Tell me what to do." "Stay with her," Maeve said. "Talk to her. Keep her grounded. The wolfsbane is attacking her system, but her wolf is fighting back. She needs to know. She's not alone." So he stayed, pulled a chair close, held her hand, and talked about nothing, about everything, about memories he barely had, of the day she arrived, of her mother's kindness, of the way Elara used to hide behind the kitchen door and watch him train in the courtyard. He hadn't known she did that, but one of the servants had mentioned it once, years ago. He'd forgotten. Now, he wished he'd paid attention. Hours passed. Maeve brought him food, water, insisted he eat. He refused. "Your Majesty, I'm not leaving her," he said, simply, firmly. Maeve didn't argue, just nodded, set the tray aside, and returned to mixing medicines. It was near midnight when Elara finally stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. Her breathing steadied. "Elara?" Darius leaned forward. "Can you hear me?" She made a small sound, somewhere between a whimper and a sigh. Then her eyes opened. Slowly, painfully, and Darius froze, because they weren't brown anymore. They glowed, soft, luminous, silver, like moonlight captured in glass. "Maeve," he breathed. "Maeve, look." But the healer was already there, already staring. Her face pale, shocked. "By the old gods," she whispered. The glow faded after a moment, Elara's eyes returning to their usual dark brown. But the damage was done. Darius had seen it. Maeve had seen it. And from the look on Elara's face, she knew exactly what it meant. "No," Elara whispered, her voice hoarse, broken. "No. No, no, no. Elara, you can't tell anyone." She tried to sit up, gasped in pain, fell back. "Please, Darius, you can't tell anyone what you saw." "What I saw." He stared at her. "Elara, your eyes, I know." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I know, but you have to forget it. You have to." "She's moon-marked," Maeve said quietly. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Absolute. Darius looked at Maeve. "What?" "Moon-marked," the healer repeated, her voice filled with something close to reverence. "A bloodline that hasn't been seen in decades, maybe longer." Darius shook his head. That's a myth, a legend. Moon-marked wolves are real," Maeve said, "and sitting right in front of you." He looked at Elara. She'd turned her face away, sobbing quietly like this. This revelation was the worst thing that could have happened. "I don't understand," Darius said. "What does it mean, moon-marked?" Maeve set down her supplies, moved closer. "The moon-marked are ancient," she said, "born under rare celestial alignments. They carry abilities most wolves can only dream of. Healing, foresight, raw power that can—" She paused, chose her words carefully. "That can challenge even an alpha." Darius's mind raced. Power that could challenge an alpha. No wonder the Queen Regent wanted her broken, controlled, dead. "How long have you known?" he asked Elara gently. She shook her head. "I didn't. Not until recently. The glow started a few months ago. I thought I was dying, that something was wrong with me. I tried to hide it, tried to make it stop." "The abuse," Maeve said, voice dark with understanding. Years of silver whippings, wolfsbane in her food, isolation. It was all designed to suppress her wolf, to keep her power dormant. "But why?" Darius demanded. "Why go to such lengths? She was a child. She posed no threat." "Didn't she?" Maeve asked. "Think, Your Majesty. What happens when a moon-marked wolf comes of age? When their power fully awakens?" Darius stared. "They become leaders," Maeve continued. "Healers. Visionaries. In the old times, they were the ones who crowned kings, who guided packs, who held more influence than the throne itself," Darius finished. His blood ran cold, because suddenly everything made sense. The Queen Regent didn't torture Elara out of cruelty. She did it out of fear. Fear that this girl, this quiet, broken girl, would one day rise. And when she did, she would be unstoppable. "Does the Regent know?" he asked. "About what you are?" Elara nodded weakly. She knew before I did. My mother. She told the Regent before she died. Made her promise to protect me. To help me when my power awakened. A bitter laugh escaped her. Instead, she decided to bury me, to make sure I never became strong enough to be a threat. Darius felt rage, pure and absolute, flood through him. "She won't touch you again," he said, his voice low, deadly. "I swear it. You don't understand." Elara looked at him, eyes red and swollen. "It's not just her. The council knows. The old families know. They all agreed. Moon-marked wolves are dangerous, unpredictable. They wanted me gone." "Then they're all traitors," Darius said simply. "Darius, no." He stood, paced, his wolf snarling beneath his skin. "You are my sister, my blood, and if the council, if the regent, if anyone in this castle thinks they can hurt you and face no consequences, they're wrong." Elara stared at him, like she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much? I'm nothing. I'm just... Stop." He knelt beside her, took her hand gently. "You are not nothing. You are moon-marked, born under the light of the gods themselves. And more than that, you are my sister. And I failed you once. I will not fail you again." She searched his face, looking for lies, for doubt. She found none. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. Darius's jaw tightened. "I'm going to find out exactly who knew about your bloodline, who gave the orders, who stayed silent while you were tortured." He stood, moved toward the door. "And then," he said, voice dark as midnight, "I'm going to make them pay." "Darius." He paused, looked back. "Rest," he said softly. "Heal. And when you're strong enough," he let his eyes glow gold, "I'm going to teach you how to stop hiding and start fighting back." The warrior's name was Corvin. Darius remembered promoting him 2 years ago. Loyal, competent. A soldier who'd served the crown without question. Now, he knelt in chains in the dungeons beneath Frostmoor Keep. And Darius stood before him, barely holding his wolf back. "Look at me," Darius said, his voice quiet, controlled. But beneath it, a storm raged. Corvin kept his eyes on the floor, jaw clenched, defiant. "I said, look at me." Slowly, the warrior raised his head and immediately regretted it, because Darius's eyes glowed gold, bright, furious, barely human. "You have one chance," Darius said. "One. To tell me the truth, to explain why I found you standing over my sister, while she bled on the kitchen floor." Corvin said nothing, just stared. "No?" Darius stepped closer. "Then let me ask you this. How long have you been hurting her?" Silence. Months? Years? Nothing. Darius's claws extended, scraped against the stone wall beside Corvin's head. The warrior flinched. "I'm going to ask you one more time," Darius said, his voice dropping, becoming something other, something primal. "And if you don't answer, I'm going to stop being a king and start being a wolf." Corvin swallowed hard. But still, he stayed silent. Wrong choice. Darius moved, grabbed Corvin by the throat. lifted him off the ground, slammed him against the wall. The warrior choked, clawed at Darius's hand. But the Alpha King's grip was iron. "My sister," Darius snarled, "has scars that will never heal. Wounds that were carved into her skin by people she should have been able to trust. And you were one of them." He tightened his grip. Corvin's face turned red, then purple. "So I'm going to ask you again. Who ordered it?" He loosened his hold, just enough for Corvin to gasp for air. I can't," the warrior wheezed. "Can't, or won't. She'll kill me." Darius went very, very still. "She?" Corvin's eyes widened, realizing his mistake. Too late. "She," Darius repeated, his voice deadly calm. "You just said she. So tell me, Corvin, which she are you so afraid of that you'd rather face me than name her?" The warrior trembled, shook his head frantically. "Please, Your Majesty, you don't understand. If I tell you, she'll what?" Darius roared, his voice echoing through the dungeon. "She'll hurt you. Good. Because right now, the only thing keeping you alive is the information in your head, so start talking." Corvin broke, like a dam shattering under pressure. "The Queen Regent," he gasped. "It was her, all of it. Every order, every punishment, every—" Darius dropped him. The warrior collapsed to the floor, coughing, gasping, but Darius barely noticed, because his world had just tilted sideways. The Queen Regent, his stepmother, the woman who'd held his hand at his father's funeral, who'd whispered reassurances when he doubted himself, who'd guided him through the treacherous early years of his reign. She'd been torturing Alara. "Explain," Darius said, his voice hollow. Empty. Corvin looked up, face pale, terrified. She said the girl was dangerous, that her bloodline, moon-marked, couldn't be allowed to rise, that if she came into her power, she'd challenge your rule, undermine the throne, destroy everything your father built. So she decided to destroy her instead, Darius said flatly. Corvin nodded. She said it was for the good of the kingdom, that we were protecting you, protecting the realm. A bitter laugh escaped Darius. Protecting me by torturing a child. She was 12 when it started, Corvin whispered. Right after Queen Annalise died. The regent said that with the mother gone, there was no one left to shield the girl. That it was time to ensure she never became a threat. Darius felt sick. His father had died when Alara was 12, which meant the moment no one was left to protect her, the moment Darius left to secure the borders, that's when it began. How many? He asked, voice rough. What? How many people knew? How many followed her orders? Corvin hesitated. Answer me. Most of the guard, Corvin admitted. The senior staff, some of the council, anyone who had access to her. We all had orders. Keep her weak. Keep her isolated. Make sure she never told you. And if she did, we were told to make it worse. To remind her that speaking out would only bring more pain. Darius closed his eyes. Every servant who'd looked away, every guard who'd turned a blind eye, Every council member who'd sat across from him at meetings, knowing, they all knew, and none of them told him. "Why?" he asked, opening his eyes. "Why did you do it? You're a soldier. You took an oath to protect the innocent, to serve with honor." "I was following orders," Corvin said weakly. "That's not good enough. She's the Queen Regent. She had the authority. If I'd refused, if any of us had refused, we'd have been branded traitors. Executed. Our families. So you chose to torture a child instead," Darius said, his voice cold, final. "To save yourselves." Corvin looked away, shame finally creeping into his expression. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Sorry." Darius laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're sorry. Tell me, Corvin. Did Elara get apologies? When you hurt her? When you held her down while others whipped her? Did you tell her you were sorry then?" The warrior said nothing. "No," Darius answered for him. "You didn't, because you weren't sorry. You were just following orders." He turned toward the door, paused. "You'll remain here," he said, "under guard, until I decide what to do with you. Your Majesty, pray I show you more mercy than you showed my sister." He started walking. "She said you'd never believe it," Corvin called after him, desperate. "The Regent. She said if the girl ever told you, you'd think she was lying, that you'd never suspect someone so close to the throne." Darius stopped. "She underestimated me," he said quietly. "But she was right about one thing." "What's that?" "You do care about the throne, about stability, about keeping the kingdom strong." Corvin's voice grew bolder. "And if you expose her, if you strip her of her power, the council will fracture, the old families will revolt, everything you've built will crumble." Darius turned slowly, looked at the warrior, and smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Then let it crumble," he said softly. Corvin went pale. "I am the Alpha King," Darius continued, "and if this kingdom, if this council, if these old families believe they can torture my sister and face no consequences, then they don't deserve to stand." He let his eyes glow. "I will burn this castle to ash before I let them hurt her again." The words hung in the air, cold, absolute, terrifying. Then Darius left, climbed the stairs from the dungeon, his mind reeling. The Queen Regent, the woman who'd smiled at him yesterday morning at breakfast, who'd asked about the border negotiations, who'd recommended a new advisor just last week. She'd orchestrated everything, and she'd done it for power. To eliminate a rival bloodline, to secure her own heir's claim to influence, to ensure nothing, no one, could challenge her control. Darius reached the healer's chamber, pushed open the door, found Elara asleep, Maeve watching over her. He moved to her bedside, looked down at this girl, his sister, who'd suffered in silence, who'd believed she deserved it, who'd been told her entire life that she was worthless, all because she was born powerful, born dangerous, born with the blood of legends running through her veins. Darius knelt beside her and made a vow, not just to protect her, but to help her rise, to ensure that everyone who tried to break her would face the woman she was meant to become. "Sleep well, Elara," he whispered, "because when you wake—" His eyes glowed gold in the darkness. "We're going to war." Darius found her by the fire. 3 days had passed since the interrogation, since he'd learned the truth. 3 days of rage, of planning, of barely sleeping. But tonight, he needed answers only she could give. Elara sat in a chair near the hearth, wrapped in blankets, staring into the flames. She looked small, fragile, like a single strong wind could shatter her. Maeve had said she was healing, that the fever had broken, that the wounds were closing. But Darius could see. Some wounds ran deeper than flesh. "Elara," he said softly. She didn't turn, didn't acknowledge him, just kept staring at the fire. He moved closer, pulled a chair beside hers, sat. For a long moment, neither spoke, just the crackle of flames, the whisper of wind against stone. Finally, Darius broke the silence. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elara's breath hitched, almost imperceptibly, but she still didn't look at him. "I need to understand," he continued, his voice gentle, careful. "You lived in this castle for years, suffered, things no one should ever endure. And I was here. I was your brother, your family. So why? Why didn't you come to me?" Silence. "Elara, please." "Because you were the king," she whispered. The words were so quiet, so broken, but they hit him like a physical blow. "What?" "You were the king," she repeated, louder now. "And I was nobody. The unwanted stepsister. The girl who didn't belong. Why would you care?" "Because you're my sister." "Am I?" She turned finally, met his eyes, and he saw everything. All the pain, all the doubt, all the years of isolation. "Really, Darius? When did you ever treat me like your sister?" The question hung in the air, and Darius had no answer. Because she was right. He'd barely spoken to her, barely acknowledged her existence. She'd been invisible. "You left," Elara said, her voice cracking. "Right after my mother married your father. You left for the borders. And you stayed gone for 2 years. When you came back, my mother was dead. And you looked at me like you didn't know who I was." "I didn't. I know." A bitter laugh escaped her. "I was just the quiet girl in the corner, the one who cleaned your chambers, who served your meals, who you passed in the hallways without a second glance. Each word was a knife. Elara, so no," she said. "I didn't tell you because I didn't think you'd care. I thought maybe you already knew, that maybe you'd agreed to it." Darius felt his heart stop. "You thought that I allowed? What else was I supposed to think?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You were the king, the alpha. Everyone answered to you. If they were hurting me, and you never stopped it. I thought it was because you didn't want to, because I wasn't worth protecting. Elara, no. And even if you didn't know," she wiped her eyes roughly, "even if I'd tried to tell you, who would believe me? A servant girl accusing the Queen Regent? Accusing your advisors, your guards? I'd have been called a liar, attention-seeking, ungrateful. I would have believed you. Would you?" She looked at him, really looked at him. Honestly, Darius, if I'd come to you 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was trying to cause trouble, trying to disrupt the kingdom? He wanted to say yes, wanted to promise that he would have listened, would have investigated, would have protected her. But the truth was, he didn't know, because he'd barely known her, barely seen her. I was afraid, Elara whispered. Every single day. I was terrified, not just of the pain, but of being cast out, of being sent away. Because at least here, at least in the castle, I had a roof over my head, food, a place to sleep. If I spoke out, if I caused problems, I thought they'd throw me into the streets. Or worse. Worse? They told me. Her voice broke. They told me that if I ever told you, they'd make sure I disappeared. That no one would even notice. That I'd just be gone, and you'd move on, and forget I ever existed. Darius felt something inside him shatter completely. And I believed them, Elara continued, sobbing now. Because why wouldn't I? You barely looked at me, barely spoke to me. I was nothing, just a burden, a mistake, someone who shouldn't have been here in the first place. Stop. His voice cracked. Elara, stop. It's true. It's not. He moved from his chair, knelt in front of her, took her hands. It's not true. You were never a burden, never a mistake. You were my sister. You are my sister. And the fact that I didn't see you, didn't protect you, that's on me, not you. She shook her head. You had a kingdom to run, wars to fight. You couldn't. I could have, he said firmly. I should have. There's no excuse, no justification. I was so focused on being king, on proving myself, on living up to my father's legacy, that I forgot the most important thing. What? Family. His voice trembled. You were here, in my home, my blood, and I left you alone. I let you become invisible. I let them hurt you, and I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Elara stared at him, tears streaming down her face. But I'm here now, Darius continued, and I swear to you, on my crown, on my wolf, on everything I am, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Not the regent, not the council, not anyone. What if they try? Then they'll face me. His eyes glowed gold, and I promise you, they will lose. She searched his face, looking for lies, for empty promises. Why? She whispered. Why do you care now? What changed? I saw you, he said simply. Really saw you. For the first time. And I realized I've been blind. Blind to your suffering. Blind to your strength. Blind to the fact that you survived years of torture. And you're still here. Still fighting. Still alive. He squeezed her hands gently. You're not weak, Elara. You're not worthless. You're not a burden. You're a survivor. And you're stronger than anyone in this castle, including me. Her breath hitched. I don't feel strong, she whispered. You don't have to, he said. Not yet. But you will. Because I'm going to help you. I'm going to stand beside you. And together, we're going to make sure Everyone who hurt you pays. I'm scared, she admitted, voice small, broken. I know. He reached up, wiped a tear from her cheek. But you don't have to be scared alone anymore. She closed her eyes, fresh tears falling. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, she whispered. Don't. His voice was firm but gentle. Don't apologize. Not for this. Not for surviving. Not for protecting yourself the only way you knew how. He stood, pulled her into his arms, held her as she sobbed into his chest. And for the first time, she didn't pull away, didn't stiffen, didn't try to make herself smaller. She just held on, like she'd been waiting years for someone to catch her. When her sobs finally quieted, Darius pulled back, looked at her. From now on, he said, voice trembling with emotion, I see you. Elara looked up at him, eyes red, face streaked with tears. But something in her expression had shifted. Hope, small, fragile, uncertain, but there. I see you, Elara, he repeated, and I'm never looking away again. She nodded, unable to speak, but she didn't have to, because for the first time in her life, she believed him. The door to Elara's chamber burst open. No knock, no warning, just the sudden crash of wood against stone. Elara jerked upright in her chair, eyes wide, terrified, because standing in the doorway, flanked by 6 armed guards, was the Queen Regent, Lady Morgana Thornwell, elegant, poised, dressed in deep crimson silk that made her look like she'd bathed in blood. Her expression, cold, controlled, but her eyes burned with fury. So, she said, her voice sharp as a blade. The little mouse finally found her voice. Elara tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. She collapsed back into the chair, trembling. Your Grace, she whispered. I didn't. Didn't what? Morgana stepped into the room, slow, deliberate, like a predator circling wounded prey. Didn't run crying to the king, didn't fill his head with lies and delusions. They weren't lies. Silence. The word cracked through the air. Elara flinched, shrank back, and Morgana smiled. Look at you, she said, voice dripping with contempt. Still cowering, still weak. After everything I did to teach you your place, you learned nothing. Please. Elara's voice broke. Please, just leave me alone. Leave you alone? Morgana laughed. Cold, cruel. Oh, child, if only you'd left well enough alone. If only you'd kept your mouth shut like I taught you. She moved closer, loomed over Elara. But no. You had to go and play the victim. Had to make yourself important. Had to convince my stepson that you are worth his attention. I didn't. You are a liar. Morgana's voice rose, echoing through the chamber. A manipulative, attention-seeking, dangerous little liar. Elara shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm not. I didn't lie. You just what? Morgana grabbed Elara's chin, forced her to look up. You just thought you could disrupt everything I've built, undermine my authority, turn the king against me. Her grip tightened. You are nothing, a curse, a mistake. Your mother should have drowned you the day you were born. Alara gasped, tried to pull away, but Morgana held firm. "You don't belong here," she hissed. "You never did, and it's time, past time, that you remembered that." She released Alara, turned to the guards. "Take her." The guards hesitated, just for a moment, but it was enough. "I said take her," Morgana commanded. "She has spread lies about the crown, attempted to sow discord. She will be disciplined accordingly." "No," Alara whispered. "No, please. Not again." The guards moved forward, reached for her. And then, "Touch her, and I'll send your entire bloodline to ash." The voice came from the shadows, low, deadly, absolute. Everyone froze. Darius stepped into the firelight. He'd been there the whole time, waiting, watching, letting Morgana reveal herself. His eyes glowed gold, bright, burning, and the air around him crackled with raw power. "Darius," Morgana said, her voice shifting, becoming softer, almost gentle. "My dear boy, I'm so glad you're here. This girl, she's been filling your head with lies, poisoning you against—" "Stop talking." Morgana's mouth snapped shut. Darius moved forward, slow, controlled. But his wolf was barely contained. "You have," he said quietly, 3 seconds to leave this room, before I forget that you're family. Before I forget that you once guided me. Before I forget everything except the fact that you tortured my sister." Morgana's face paled, but she lifted her chin, defiant. "She is not your sister," she spat. "She's a stray, a burden, an unwanted relic of your father's foolish second marriage." 2 seconds. "Darius, listen to me. 1. She's moon-marked," Morgana screamed, the mask finally cracking. "Don't you understand? She's dangerous. Her bloodline has toppled kingdoms, destroyed dynasties. If she comes into her full power, she'll be unstoppable. She'll challenge you, undermine you. Everything you've built, everything your father built, will crumble." Silence. Heavy. Thick. Suffocating. Darius stared at her, and then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I know," he said simply. Morgana blinked. You know? "I know she's moon-marked. I know her power. I know what she's capable of." He stepped closer. "And I don't care." "You don't?" Morgana shook her head, disbelief written across her face. "You're not thinking clearly. She's manipulated you, twisted your judgment. You must see—" "What I see," Darius interrupted, "is a woman who tortured a child for years, who used fear and pain to break someone who couldn't fight back, who orchestrated a conspiracy within my own castle, and believed she'd never face consequences." He let his claws extend. "You were wrong." Morgana took a step back. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. "I am the Queen Regent," she said, voice rising, desperate. "I have authority granted by your father. By the council. You cannot simply—" "I can." Darius's voice was ice. "I am the Alpha King, and as of this moment, you are stripped of your title, your authority, your position in this court. You can't do this." I just did. The council will never allow. The council, Darius said, will do as I command, or they will join you in exile. Morgana's face twisted, rage and panic warring for dominance. You fool, she hissed. You have no idea what you're protecting. She's not some innocent victim. She's a weapon, a threat, and the moment she realizes her full power, she'll destroy everything you love. Then I'll stand beside her when she does. You're signing your own death warrant. No. Darius moved to stand beside Alara, placed a protective hand on her shoulder. I'm correcting a mistake I should have fixed years ago. Morgana looked between them, between the king and the broken girl he was defending, and something in her snapped. You're weak, she spat. Just like your father, sentimental, foolish, willing to sacrifice everything for a girl who means nothing. Get out. She will doom this kingdom. Mark my words, Darius. Her dangerous nature, her cursed bloodline, it will bring ruin to us all. Get out! The roar shook the chamber. The guards jumped, the torches flickered, and Morgana, finally, backed toward the door. But before she left, she looked at Alara and smiled, cold, cruel, promising. This isn't over, she said quietly. You may have the king's protection now, little mouse, but it won't last. It never does. And when he finally sees what you really are. She leaned closer. I'll be waiting. Then she turned and swept from the room. The guards followed. The door slammed shut. Silence. Alara sat frozen, shaking, barely breathing. Darius knelt beside her, took her hand. She's gone, he said softly. She can't hurt you anymore. But Alara shook her head. She will, she whispered. You heard her. She won't stop. She'll find a way. She always finds a way. Then we'll be ready. Darius, what if she's right? What if I really am dangerous? What if my power? What if it? Then we'll face it together, he said firmly. You and me, whatever comes, we face it together. Alara looked at him, tears streaming down her face. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if they were tears of fear or tears of hope. They came at midnight, when the castle slept, when even the torches burned low. Darius heard them before he saw them. The scrape of boots on stone, the whisper of drawn steel, the careful, too careful, footsteps approaching Alara's chamber. He'd been sitting watch outside her door, refusing to leave, refusing to trust anyone else with her safety. Now, he stood, drew his sword, and waited. 10 guards rounded the corner, armor dark, faces covered, moving with the precision of trained soldiers, not random attackers, assassins. Going somewhere? Darius asked, his voice calm, deadly. The lead guard stopped, hand on his weapon. Your Majesty, he said, voice muffled behind a black cloth mask. Step aside. This doesn't concern you. Everything in this castle concerns me. The regent gave orders. The regent, Darius interrupted, has no authority. Not anymore. So I'll ask you once. Turn around, leave, and I'll pretend this never happened. The guards exchanged glances. Then they drew their weapons. Wrong choice, Darius said, and attacked. He moved like lightning, sword flashing in the dim torchlight. The first guard went down without a sound. The second blocked, barely. But Darius wasn't just a king. He was an alpha, and his wolf, was done being patient. He shifted partially, claws extending, eyes glowing, strength multiplying. 3 more guards fell, then 4. But they kept coming, kept pressing, kept trying to get past him to the door, to Elara. Inside the chamber, he heard her scream, not pain, fear, because the door was splintering. More guards, coming from the servants' entrance. Darius roared, turned, tried to reach her, but a blade caught his shoulder. Drove deep, he snarled, grabbed the guard's arm, broke it, but it cost him precious seconds. The door burst open, and guards flooded into Elara's chamber. No! Darius threw himself through the doorway, found chaos. 6 guards, surrounding Elara, grabbing her, dragging her from the bed. She fought, kicked, screamed, but she was weak, still healing, still human. Darius crashed into them, claws tearing, sword swinging. But there were too many. One grabbed Elara's hair, yanked her head back, pressed a blade to her throat. "Stop," the guard commanded, "or she dies." Darius froze, blood dripping from his claws, chest heaving, eyes blazing gold. "Let her go," he said, voice barely controlled. "The regent wants her dead," the guard said. "And we follow the regent. The regent is a traitor. She's our queen. She's nothing." The guard pressed the blade closer, drew a thin line of blood across Elara's throat. She whimpered, eyes squeezed shut, trembling violently. And Darius felt his world narrow to a single point. The girl he'd failed, the sister he'd finally found, about to die because of him. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "Please don't. I'm sorry," Elara whispered. Darius blinked. "What?" "I'm sorry," she repeated, tears streaming. "I'm sorry for all of this. For being a burden. For causing trouble. For... Elara, no. I'm sorry. I couldn't control it." Her eyes opened, and they glowed, silver, bright as the full moon. The guard holding her gasped. "What?" Light exploded from Elara's body, pure, blinding, beautiful. A shockwave of raw power erupted outward. Every guard was thrown back, slammed into walls, crashed to the floor. Even Darius felt the force of it, like standing in a hurricane. But he didn't fall. His alpha blood, his connection to her, kept him anchored. He watched, stunned, as Elara rose, not stumbling, not weak, rising. Her feet left the ground just slightly, as if gravity had less hold on her. Her hair lifted, floating in an invisible wind. Her skin glowed with silver light, soft, radiant, like she'd swallowed the moon itself. And her eyes burned like stars. Ancient markings appeared on her skin, swirling patterns of light, running down her arms, across her shoulders, shimmering with power older than kingdoms. "Elara," Darius breathed. She turned to him, slowly, and for a moment, he wasn't sure she recognized him. Her expression was distant, ancient, something other looked out from behind her eyes. Then she blinked, and she was Elara again, terrified, confused, overwhelmed. "Darius?" Her voice trembled. What's happening to me?" "Your power," he said softly. "It's awakening." I can't stop it." "Don't." He stepped closer, carefully. "Don't stop it. Let it come. I'm scared." "I know, but you're not alone. I'm right here. She looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. Trust. She closed her eyes, took a breath, and let go. The light intensified, filled the chamber, spilled into the hallway. Darius felt it wash over him. Warm, powerful, but not painful. Healing. The wound on his shoulder, closed, sealed as if it had never been. Around them, the fallen guards groaned, stirred, but they didn't attack. They stared, mouths open, eyes wide, at the girl they'd tried to kill, the girl who now glowed like a goddess. One of the guards dropped his weapon, fell to his knees. "Moon-marked," he whispered. "She's moon-marked." Another guard followed, then another, kneeling, not in defeat, in reverence, because they recognized what stood before them. Not a servant girl, not a weak Omega, a Luna, ancient, powerful, born under the blessing of the moon itself. Footsteps echoed from the hallway, slow, unsteady. The Queen Regent appeared in the doorway, face pale, eyes wide, leaning against the frame for support. She'd felt the power, been knocked unconscious by the shockwave. Now, she stared at Alara, at the girl she'd tortured for years, the girl who was supposed to stay broken. "No," Morgana whispered. "No, this isn't. You were supposed to be weak. I made sure the silver, the wolfsbane, it should have." "You failed," Darius said quietly. Morgana's legs gave out. She collapsed, caught herself against the doorframe. "This is impossible," she breathed. "I kept her suppressed. I kept her contained. She shouldn't have been able to—" "You can't cage the moon," Alara said. Her voice had changed, deeper, resonant, echoing with power. She stepped forward, light trailing behind her like a cloak. Morgana shrank back. "Stay away from me. You hurt me," Alara said. Each word measured, heavy. "For years, you told me I was worthless, dangerous, a curse. You are dangerous." "Yes." Alara stopped, looked down at the woman who'd tormented her. "I am, but not the way you feared." She knelt, slowly, until they were eye level. "I'm not dangerous because I'll destroy," she said softly. "I'm dangerous because I'll heal what you've broken. I'll protect what you've hurt. I'll stand for those who have no voice." Tears streamed down Morgana's face. "You were supposed to disappear," she whispered. "I know." Alara's expression was almost sad. "But I didn't. And now, you have to answer for what you've done." The light around Alara pulsed, and Morgana finally broke, sobbing, collapsing fully to the floor. Defeated. Not by violence, but by the realization that the girl she'd tried to destroy had become everything she feared. Alara stood, turned to Darius. The light around her began to fade, slowly, gently, until she was just a girl again, exhausted, shaking, but alive and powerful. Darius moved to her side, caught her as her knees buckled. "I've got you," he murmured. She looked up at him, eyes returning to their normal brown. What just happened?" "You," he said softly. Just became exactly who you were meant to be. Around them, the guards remained kneeling. The regent lay defeated. And dawn began to break through the windows, washing everything in silver light. The great hall had never been so silent. Every member of the council sat in their seats, stiff, nervous, eyes darting between the throne and the woman kneeling before it, the Queen Regent, no longer dressed in silk and jewels, now in simple grey cloth, hands bound, head bowed, stripped of everything, title, authority, dignity. Darius sat on the throne, crown resting heavy on his head, expression carved from stone. But inside, his wolf still snarled, still demanded blood. He forced it down. This had to be done properly, publicly, so everyone would know what happened to those who hurt his family. Morgana Thornwell, he said, his voice echoing through the hall. You stand accused of conspiracy, torture, attempted murder, treason against the crown. Morgana said nothing, just stared at the floor. For years, Darius continued, you orchestrated the systematic abuse of a child under my protection. You used silver whips, wolfsbane, fear. You commanded guards, servants, and advisors to participate. And when your crimes were discovered, you attempted to have her killed. Murmurs rippled through the council. Some looked shocked, others looked away. They knew, maybe not the details, but they'd known something was wrong, and said nothing. Do you deny these charges? Darius asked. Slowly. Morgana lifted her head. Her eyes were hollow, empty. No, she said, voice flat. I don't deny them. More murmurs, louder now. Then you understand, Darius said, that the penalty for treason is death. Silence crashed through the hall. Morgana smiled, bitter, broken. Do it, she said. End this. I've already lost everything that mattered. Darius stared at her. He wanted to. Gods, how he wanted to. Wanted to shift. To let his wolf tear her apart. To make her feel even a fraction of the pain she'd inflicted. But he looked to his right, where Alara stood. She'd insisted on being here. On watching, on seeing justice done. She wore a simple dress, blue like the morning sky, her hair braided with silver thread. She looked small still, fragile, but her eyes were clear, steady, strong. She met his gaze and shook her head, just slightly. No, not like this. Darius took a breath, turned back to Morgana. Death, he said slowly, is too easy, too quick. You don't get to escape what you've done. Morgana blinked, confusion flickering across her face. You will be stripped of your titles, Darius continued, stripped of your lands, your wealth, your position in society. You will be exiled to the northern wastes, alone, with nothing but the clothes on your back. And you will live, knowing that the girl you tried to break became everything you feared. Morgana's face crumpled. No, she whispered. Please. Death would be mercy. Then it's fortunate, Darius said coldly, that I'm not feeling merciful. He gestured to the guards. They moved forward, lifted Morgana to her feet. She didn't fight, didn't resist, just stared at Elara as they dragged her toward the door. "You'll regret this," she said, voice cracking. "When her power consumes her, when she loses control, you'll remember my warning." "And you," Elara said quietly, "will remember what it feels like to be powerless." Morgana flinched, as if the words hurt more than any blade could. Then she was gone, dragged from the hall, from the castle, from Frostmoor, never to return. The doors closed, and Darius stood. "Let this be known," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Any who knew of these crimes, any who participated, any who stayed silent, you have one chance. One. To confess. To seek forgiveness. To make amends." He let his eyes glow gold. "Because if I discover you hid this from me, if I find you complicit, you will join the Regent in exile, or worse." Silence, heavy, terrified. Then, one by one, members of the council stood, heads bowed, voices trembling, confessing, apologizing, begging for mercy. Darius listened to all of them, and when they finished, he looked at Elara. "The decision," he said, "is not mine alone. Elara, what would you have me do?" Every eye turned to her. She stood, small, but unbroken, in front of the most powerful people in the kingdom, people who'd ignored her, hurt her, dismissed her, now waiting for her judgment. She took a breath. "They were afraid," she said softly. "Afraid of the Regent, afraid of losing their positions, their families. I understand that." Murmurs of relief. "But," she continued, voice growing stronger, "understanding is not forgiveness. Not yet. They will work to earn it. They will help rebuild what was broken. They will ensure that no one else suffers as I did." She looked at Darius. "And if they fail, then they answer to you." Darius smiled, small, proud. "So be it," he said. He turned to the council. "You heard her. Consider this your chance. Don't waste it." Then he stepped down from the throne, moved to Elara's side. "Come," he said gently. "You've been strong enough for one day." She nodded. Let him lead her from the hall. They found themselves on the castle battlements. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The wind was cool, gentle, carrying the scent of pine and snow. Elara leaned against the stone wall, closed her eyes, let the breeze wash over her. "How do you feel?" Darius asked. She was quiet for a long moment. "Strange," she finally said. Like I'm waking up from a nightmare, but I'm not sure the nightmare is really over." "It is," he said firmly. "I promise you, it's over." "Is it?" She looked at him. "The Regent is gone. But what about me? What about what I am? What I can do? People are afraid, Darius. I saw it in their eyes. They don't see a princess. They see a threat." Then we'll show them different. How? By proving them wrong. He moved beside her, looked out over the kingdom. By showing them that your power isn't something to fear, it's something to hope for, something that will protect them, heal them, guide them. She shook her head. I don't know if I can do that. I don't even know how to control it. Last night, I could have hurt you. I could have, but you didn't. By luck. By choice, he corrected. Your power awakened to protect, not destroy. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Tears welled in her eyes. Why are you trying so hard? Why do you care so much? I'm just a girl you barely knew, a burden you never asked for. Darius turned to face her, took her hands gently. Because I failed you once, he said, his voice soft, raw. I failed to see you, failed to protect you, failed to be the brother you needed, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure I never fail you again. A tear slipped down her cheek. You don't have to. I do, he said. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because you're my sister, my family, and I'm not letting you face this world alone anymore. She stared at him, searching for doubt, for lies. Found none. What happens now? She whispered. Now, he said, we rebuild. Together. An alpha king. And a moon-marked Luna. We show this kingdom, this world, what family really means. He squeezed her hands. And we make sure that no one ever makes you feel powerless again. She nodded, unable to speak. But she didn't need to, because for the first time in her life, she felt safe. She felt seen. She felt home. They stood together on the battlements, watching the sun rise over Frostmoor. Two survivors, two fighters, two souls, who'd found each other in the darkness and discovered they were never meant to be alone. An alpha king and a moon-marked Luna, brother and sister, family. The dawn broke full and bright, and with it, a new future began. You've just listened to another story from the Moonlight Romance Library. If you're part of the pack now, show it. Hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're listening from. New episodes drop every week, and every single one is made just for you, my wild romantic hearts.